Chapter 10, From Vedic to the Vedantic Age, God Within, Reincarnation and Karma, covering from about the years 800 to 500 BCE. Written and produced by Thomas Tyseal, copyright Thomas Tyseal unless otherwise noted. Vedanta means the end of the Vedas, and it is fitting in two ways. Originally, it referred to the Upanishads, which, you recall, were added to the end of the Vedas, as you can see at right. It also reflects the end of the Vedic age, the age dominated by the worship of many gods and the priests and rituals which served them. The new Upanishad Vedantic age focused more on the nature of Brahman, the transcendent God, and the discovery of God, the eternal self, Atman, within. Thus, its focus was on the inner life of believers, not priestly rituals. Many rituals would continue, but the new Vedantic understandings became the prime teachings of what would become modern Hinduism. The term Vedanta is also used to refer to various schools of Hindu thought, which we'll soon discuss. In a fascinating synchronicity, the Upanishads were composed from about 800 to 500 BCE. About the same time, Hebrews in Babylon were assembling the books which would become the Torah. Both the Upanishads and the Torah focused on the understanding that, contrary to popular belief, there is only one God, not many. 108 Upanishads have survived. Of these, 16 are considered authoritative and authentic. 10 are considered principal Upanishads. In addition to helping believers find God within, the Upanishads also explored questions about the nature of existence and consciousness. It also developed the concept of rebirth, samsara, and moksha, liberation from the cycle of rebirth. You're about to be introduced to Brahman, but before we begin, let's tend to some difficult semantic differentiations. Brahma is a Vedic deva, or god, usually shown with 4 heads as at right. Much later, he becomes the creator god in the Hindu trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Brahman is the ultimate, unchangeable, everlasting reality, God, replacing Prajapati as the most common term in the Upanishads used for the one God. Brahmin is a designation signifying that a person is from the priestly class. Brahmanism can refer to the development of Brahman theology in the Upanishads, but also to priestly activities. The term is sometimes used in a disparaging way, referring to the activity of Hindu priest. Brahmana refers to one who realizes Brahma, a priest, a member of the priestly class. And Brahmanas refers to the part of the Vedas that details sacrificial rites and rules of conduct. When the Upanishads introduced Brahman, the ultimate reality, they made it clear that the concept was so difficult that even the Vedic gods struggled to understand it. The Kena Upanishad reads, Brahman obtained a victory for the gods, and by that victory of Brahman the gods became elated. They said to themselves, Verily this victory is ours, verily this glory is ours only. Brahman, to be sure, understood it all and appeared before them, but they did not know who that adorable spirit was. They said to Agni, the god of fire, O Agni, find out who this great spirit is. Yes, he said, and hastened to it. Brahman asked him, Who are you? He replied, I am known as Agni. I am also called Jadavadi, fire. Brahman said, "What power is in you, who are so well known?" Fire replied, "I can burn all, whatever there is on earth." Brahman put a straw before him and said, "Burn this." He, Agni, rushed toward it with all his ardor, but could not burn it. Then he, Agni, returned from the spirit and said to the other gods, "I could not find out who this spirit is." The gods then sent Vayu, god of wind, but he too was unable to determine who Brahman was. Lastly, they sent Indra, the chief god and god of war. When Indra went, he found Uma, the daughter of the Himalayas, where Brahman had been. She then explained to Indra that all of the glories of the gods are attained through the spirit Brahman. In this way, the gods finally came to understand Brahman. The Maitreya Upanishad explained to a student that all gods are just forms of Brahman. A student asked, Agni, fire, Vayu, wind, and Aditya, sun, Kala, time, Prana, breath, Ana, food, Brahma, the creator god, Rudra, the god of destruction, Shiva, and Vishnu, the preserver god. Some meditate upon one, some upon another. Tell us which one is the best. These are foremost forms of the Supreme, the immortal, the bodiless Brahman. To whichever deity each man is attached, in its world he rejoices. Yet it is said, this whole world is Brahman. These deities, which are its foremost forms, one should meditate upon, worship, but then deny, reject the God's individuality. He thus unites with the universal and attains union with the sole Brahman. The sage in the Brihad Aryanka Upanishad explained to a student that there is only one God. Then the student asked the teacher, "How many gods are there?" The teacher replied, 303 and 3003. Yes, the student said, and asked again, "How many gods are there really, O teacher?" 33, he said. Yes, the student said, and asked again, "How many gods are there really, O teacher?" 6, he said. Yes, the student said, and asked again, "How many gods are there really, O teacher?" 3, he said. Yes, the student said, and asked again, "How many gods are there really?" 2, he said. Yes, the student said, and asked again, "How many gods are there really?" 1.5, he said. Yes, the student said, and asked again, "How many gods are there really, O teacher?" 1, he said. In verse 9, the verses say, the one God is Brahman. The sage in the Kenya Upanishad explained to a disciple that Brahman is sublime and unknowable. If thou thinkest I know it well, then it is certain that thou knowest but little of the Brahman, or in what form he resideth in the Devas. Therefore I think that what thou thinkest to be known is still to be sought after. The disciple said, I do not think I know it well, nor do I think that I do not know it. He among us who knows it truly knows what is meant by I know, and also what is meant by I know it not. He who thinks he knows it not, knows it. He who thinks he knows it not. The true knowers think that they can never know it because of its infinitude, while the ignorant think they know it. It, Brahman, is known when it is known in every state of consciousness. One attains immortality. By attaining this self, man gains strength, and by self-knowledge, immortality is attained. The sage in the Kina Upanishad also explained to a pupil that Brahman is the consciousness that powers all consciousnesses. The pupil asked, "At whose wish does the mind sent forth proceed on its errand? At whose command does the first breath go forth? At whose wish do we utter this speech? What god directs the eye or the ear?" The teacher replies, "It is the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of speech, the breath of breath, and the eye of the eye. When freed from the senses, the wise, finding Brahman, on departing from this world, become immortal." The eye does not go thither to Brahman, nor speech, nor mind. We do not know. We do not understand how anyone can teach it. It is different from the known. It is also above the unknown. Thus we have heard from those of old who taught us this. That which is not expressed by speech, and by which speech is expressed, that alone know as Brahman, not that which people here adore. The Mundaka Upanishad further explained that everything we know depends on Brahman. Brahma was the first among the devas, the creator of the universe, the protector of the world. He taught the knowledge of Brahman, on which all knowledge rests, to his eldest son Atharva. The Upanishads also introduce new knowledge about ourself, Atman, the God or Brahman within us. Consider these teachings from the Upanishads. Both the individual self and the universal self have entered the cave of the heart, the abode of the Most High. But the knowers of Brahman and the householders who perform the fire sacrifices, the devout Hindus, see a difference between them as between sunshine and shadow. There are two selves, the separate ego and the indivisible Atman. When one rises above I and me and mine, the Atman is revealed as one's real self. He is one, the Lord and innermost self of all, of one form. He makes of himself many forms. To him who sees the self revealed in his own heart belongs eternal bliss, to none else, to none else. Eventually, different schools of thought arose about Brahman and the soul. It's useful to think about which school you'd follow. The dualists believe that Brahman and the human soul are different. The non-dualists believe that Brahman and the human soul are one. Dualist non-dualists believe that self is both different and not different from the ultimate reality. And qualified non-dualists believe that self is different but with the potential to be identical with Brahman. We turn now to look at samsara, which literally means wandering or a passage. It can also simply refer to life in the material world as we pass through and are tempted by its distractions and captured by its delusions, maya, and passions, kama. These karmic traps, it is believed, eventually lead to reincarnation. Thus, samsara is often used as a synonym for the cycle of birth and death in different bodies until a soul, jiva, attains liberation, moksha. As samsara does not literally mean reincarnation, some care is needed in interpreting it in early sacred text. The word samsara appears several times in the Upanishads, for example in the Katha, the Shveta Shvatara, and the Maitri Upanishads. The concept of reincarnation, being reborn many times in different bodies, exists in many ancient cultures, for example in ancient Greece. While it is a major feature of Hinduism, its roots are obscure and deserve serious study. Scholars debate whether the concept exists in the oldest Veda, the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda describes the endless cycles of the sun, and it has been suggested that it's a natural leap from the continual rebirth of the sun to the continual rebirth of humans, as all beings are said to abide in the revolving cycle of the sun. That, however, is quite a speculative leap. Some say reincarnation is suggested in Book 3 of the Rig Veda, where it is said of the fire god Agni that in every birth he is established among men, but this is Agni, not humans. The association is a little stronger in Book 4, which reads, "First you engender for the adorable gods the best portion, immortality. Then, Savita, the sun, you set open the day to the door of the oblation and grant successive existences to men." But these successive existences likely just refer to our continued existence, day by day. The strongest suggestion that reincarnation is in the Rig Veda is in Book 10, a late addition to the Rig Veda. One such verse reads, "May your spirit Subandhu, a high priest, come back again to perform pious acts, to exercise strength, to live and long to see the sun." But one can long for the return of Supandhu's strong spirit without believing that Supandhu must return in another body. Then there's Rig Veda 1059 verses 6 and 7, which reads, "Restore to us Asuniti, sight and breath, and enjoyment in this world. Long may we behold the rising sun. Make us happy, gracious goddess, with prosperity. May earth restore the departed soul to us. May the divine heaven, may the firmament restore it. May Soma restore body to us. May Pusan restore to us speech, which is prosperity." But this could simply be an invocation for healing. Thus we can reasonably conclude that reincarnation was not a feature of early Vedic belief, but was gradually added, likely as Aryans merged with the original inhabitants of the Indus Valley, including perhaps Dravidians. After the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, in chapter 4, verse 15, has a verse that suggests reincarnation. It reads, "Thought hath returned to me, and life. My breath and soul have come again. Our bodies guard unscathed. Vaisvanara, the omnipresent Agni, preserve us." But this could also simply refer to a hope that one's birth and subsequent life is propitious and earns us a good place in the next world, or even that when one wakes in the morning, one finds vitality. To some, verse 2 in chapter 35 suggests reincarnation. It reads, "Let Savitar, the sun god, approve a spot upon the earth for thy remains, and let the bulls be yoked for it, that is, let your soul be disciplined. Let Vayu, air, purify. Let Savitar, the sun, purify. With Agni's glitter, with Savitar's luster, let the bulls be unyoked. Let your spirit roam free." But this is likely simply advice to live a disciplined life so that one finds freedom in the afterlife. Similarly, a verse in Book or Kanda 5, chapter or hymn 1 of the Atharva Veda reads, "He who with special plans and deathless spirit, that is Brahma, waxing well-born, hath come unto his ever-existent birthplace. As he who shines upholds the days, thus Trita, a minor god who was the third of three brothers, of pure life bears the three, heaven, earth, and what's in between, as their supporter. And this suggests reincarnation to some, but this is more likely simply talking about Brahma. Lastly, some claim that Book 7, Chapter 67, Verse 1 of the Atharva Veda is about reincarnation. It reads, "May sense return to me again, and spirit return my sacred power and my possessions. Again let fires of flame on lesser altars, each duly stationed, here succeed and prosper." But this is likely just referring to a hopes of one's senses and spirits will return in the afterlife. As you can tell, translating and interpreting Vedic texts can be exceedingly difficult. Here's an example of two translations of chapter 19, verse 47 of the White Yajurveda. The first is taken from a website that cites it as proof that this verse refers to reincarnation. I'll read it. The important parts are highlighted in yellow. There are two paths for the soul. One path, Pritriyan, provides birth again and again, through union of father and mother, good and bad deeds, happiness and sorrow. The other path of Devayana frees the soul from the cycle of birth and death and provides bliss and salvation. The whole world reverberates with both these paths, and after both, the soul again takes birth as progeny of father and mother. Now consider this alternative translation. I have heard of two paths of the existential travel of mortals, all that is born of father and mother between earth and heaven. One, the path of ancestors, and the other, the path of the divines. By these two paths does the world on the move moves on, and on to its destination. Here, no trace of reincarnation can be found. While most scholars have trouble identifying reincarnation in the Rig Veda, and even in the Samhitas, the most ancient layer of the other Vedas, it does clearly appear in what is considered the earliest Upanishads, the Chandogya and the Brihad Aryanka Upanishads. As the concept is so important, it's worth taking a close look at it. The Chandogya Upanishad, written between the 8th and 6th century BCE, begins its introduction of reincarnation with a lesson about the 5 fires. The context is a king, that is, a member of the warrior ruling caste, testing the knowledge of Svetaketu, the son of a Brahman. The king asked Svetaketu, "Do you have any idea where from this world human beings go in heaven?" "No, sir, I have no idea," he replied. "Do you know how they come back?" "No, sir, I don't." "Have you any idea where the two paths, the paths of the gods and the path of the ancestors, part?" "No, sir, I don't know." The king asked a few more questions, to which the student likewise had no answer and was thus embarrassed. Thus the student returned to his father, who confessed that he likewise did not know the answers. Feeling embarrassed, the father of the boy then went to the king for instruction. After many failed entreaties, the king eventually consented to pass his knowledge to a Brahman for the first time. The 5 fires namesake verse reads, "O Gautama," a Brahmin from a particular court, "heaven is the sacrificial fire, the sun is its fuel, the rays are the smoke, day is the flame, the moon is the embers, and the stars are the sparks." What follows are components of a meditation about the nature of sacrificial fires and what they represent. Swami Krishnanandi has a good summary from which I'll borrow. At the highest level, he says, a sacrificial fire represents the great fire of the universe, the origin and connector of everything and every event in the universe. The verses then explain that the sun is the fuel which ignites the fire of our offerings to the universe, as the sun gives us life on earth. The verses then note that a sacrificial fire produces smoke, which, as it rises, appears or makes evident rays from the sun. All of our offerings are like smoke, making apparent the rays of the sun, which gives us the day in which we work. As the sacrificial fire fades, the embers are like the moon, who also represents soma, the sacred drink, and the sparks which rise from the flame are like the stars. This is but the beginning of learning about the first of the 5 fires, the fire of heaven, and all that is a precursor to understanding reincarnation. The last verse was about the fire sacrifice representing heaven. The next verses brings us closer to the realm of earth and focuses on a rainstorm. The verses read, "The gods offer water as a token of respect to the sacrificial fire. Out of that oblation appears the sacred elixir Soma. O Gautama, the god of rain is the fire. Air is its fuel. The cloud is the smoke. Lightning is the flame. The thunderbolt is the embers. And thunder is the sparks. The gods offer Soma as the oblation to the fire. Out of that oblation appears rain." Soma, both a Vedic god and a plant whose juice was offered to the gods in the fire sacrifice, and whose elixir was given to the priest, is said here to be the cause of rain. Swami Krishnanandi notes that in a sacrificial fire we can see the flash of lightning that heralds rain. The smoke which rises from the sacrificial fire forms, as it were, rain clouds, and the crackling of the embers recalls the sound of thunder. Rain, of course, brings forth the food upon which we depend, and so is also a god to us. The fire sacrifice is meant to call to mind all these blessings of a rainstorm. We move next to the earth itself. O Gautama, the earth is the fire, the year is its fuel, the sky is the smoke, night is the flame, the quarters are the embers, and the intermediate directions are the sparks. In this meditation of the fire sacrifice, our commentator notes that the earth itself is a sacrificial fire. Over a year, the earth acts as fuel in bringing forth its produce. Above the earth is sky in the same way that above the sacrificial fire is smoke. The earth's rotation is also the cause of night, in the same way as the fire is the cause of flames. The earth can also be like the calm and quiet embers, and the earth has different directional vectors which arise like sparks from a fire. We come now to the last remembrance from the fire sacrifice, men and women. The verses read, O Gautama, man is the fire, speech is his fuel, prana, the underlying energy that animates the body and mind, is the smoke, the tongue is the flame, the eyes are the embers, and the ears are the sparks. The gods offer food as the oblation to the fire. Out of that oblation appears semen. Here, speech is what man lives for and is his fuel. His life energy, prana, rises like smoke as an offering to the universe. The tongue tastes and thus rises above blandness like the flames of the fire. And in the eyes, one can see the embers of our whole life, while ears are attentive to the sparks of life. On a physical level, food from the earth feeds man and allows him to reproduce. Next we read, O Gautama, woman is the fire. The gods offer semen as the oblation to the fire. Out of that oblation appears the fetus. Thus, after the fifth oblation, the fire of woman, water becomes known as man, as a human fetus is mostly water. The fetus lies within the mother's womb, covered with membrane, for about 9 or 10 months, and then it is born. When a person is born, he lives as long as he is destined to live. Then when he dies, as ordained, they, his sons or disciples, take him from his home to the fire from which he came, to cremation, sending him back to heaven. It is that same fire from which he was born and to which he owes his birth. Having taught how the fire sacrifice symbolizes all creation, the king who's telling the story finally arrives at the subject of reincarnation and the two possible paths after death. First, he describes the path of the gods. Those who know this about the 5 fires, and those who live in the forest practicing austerities with faith, they go after death to the world of light. From the world of light they go to the world of day, from the world of day to the world of the bright fortnight, the waxing phase of the moon. From the world of the bright fortnight to the 6 months when the sun moves northwards, that is, becomes brighter. From there they go to the year, from the year to the sun, from the sun to the moon, where the soul dwells until the fruits of their good deeds are exhausted, and from the moon to lightning, a higher realm of realization. There someone, not human, receives them and leads them to the Brahmaloka, the abode of Brahma. This is the path of the gods. The verses then describe the other fate. On the other hand, those who live in the village and perform acts of public service, charity, and so on, but have not practiced detachment with faith, attain the world of smoke, partial light. From there they go to the world of the night. From night they go to the world of the dark fortnight, the waning phase of the moon. And from the dark fortnight they go to the world of the 6 months, when the sun moves to the south and gets darker. This means that they never attain the world of the year, a higher stage of existence. From the 6 months of the southern solstice, they go to the world of the ancestors, and from there they go to the sky. Then from the sky they go to the moon to live out their karma. This is King Soma. This is the food of the gods. The gods enjoy eating this food, as humans will, as they experience whatever good their karma has produced. Living in the world of the moon until the fruits of his work are exhausted, he then goes back to this world along the path he came. First going to the sky, he then goes to the air. Having become air, he next becomes smoke. Having become smoke, he then becomes mist. Having become mist, he changes into clouds. Then from clouds it becomes rain and falls to the earth. Finally it grows as paddy, barley, plants, trees, sesame, beans, and so forth. The change from this state is very difficult. Those who eat these things produce children just like themselves. Among them, those who did good work in this world in their past life attain a good birth accordingly. They are born as a Brahman, a Kitsra, or a Visya. But those who did bad work in this world in their past life attain a bad birth accordingly, being born as a dog, a pig, or as a casteless person. Next, we learn that there is a worse fate for some. But those who do not follow either of these two paths are born among small animals and insects again and again. This can be said about those who are born in this third state: be born and die. This is why the other world does not get filled up. Therefore, one should despise this state. Here is a verse on the subject. A person who steals gold or drinks liquor or goes to bed with his teacher's wife or kills a Brahmin, these four are lost. Also lost is the fifth, one who keeps company with such people. But he who knows the five fires remains pure, even if he is in the company of these people. He who knows this is pure and innocent, and after death he goes to a holy world. The same story, from the five fires through to reincarnation as we just reviewed, is repeated in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, written, it is believed, between 700 and 600 BCE. The wording of this Upanishad differs a little from that of the Chandogya Upanishad on the crucial verse that explains reincarnation. This verse reads as follows: And when those who do not know the five fires and have practiced austerities and faith, past work is exhausted, they become like this ether, from the ether air, from the air rain, and from the rain earth. Reaching the earth, they become food. Then they are again offered in the fire of man, thence in the fire of woman, whence they are born and perform rites, with a view to going to other worlds. Thus do they rotate, while those others who do not know these two ways become insects and moths, and these frequently biting things, gnats and mosquitoes. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also gives us what is easily the shortest explanation of reincarnation. Just as a leech supported on a straw goes to the end of it, takes hold of another support, and contracts itself, so does the self throw this body aside, make it senseless, take hold of another support, and contract itself. Much later, we'll find a short version in the Bhagavad Gita. Just as a person discards his old garments and acquires new ones, the soul similarly gives up old bodies and accepts new ones. The word karma simply means action, work, or deed. When the early Vedas talk about karma, it usually refers to the work of priest, intended, of course, to produce some beneficial outcome. In the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, however, the principle of spiritual cause and effect can be discerned in relation to the effect of giving to priest. It notes that they who give steeds dwell with the sun forever. They who give gold are blessed with life eternal. They who give robes prolong their life. It is in the Upanishads where the term takes on deeper meaning. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad shares a discussion between two people talking about work, karma, which they summarize as: one indeed becomes good through good work, and evil through evil work. Similarly, later in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we read in relation to self, as it does and acts, so it becomes. By doing good, it becomes good, and by doing evil, it becomes evil. It becomes virtuous through good acts, and vicious through evil acts. In the Chandogya Upanishad, we read more about what constitutes good action, karma. The self is free from sin, free from old age, free from death, free from sorrow, and free from hunger and thirst. It is the cause of desire for truth and the commitment to truth. This self has to be sought for and thoroughly known. The person who has sought for and known the self attains all worlds and all desires. And in chapter 3, we see a little more clearly the concept of karma and the obligations it creates for us. It reads, "All this is Brahman. Everything comes from Brahman. Everything goes back to Brahman, and everything is sustained by Brahman. One should, therefore, quietly meditate on Brahman. Each person has a mind of his own. What a person wills in his present life, he becomes when he leaves this world. One should bear this in mind and meditate accordingly." Then in chapter 5, we see even more clearly how karma is related to reincarnation. It reads, "Among them, those who did good work in this world, in their past life, attain a good birth accordingly. They are born as a Brahman, a priest, a Kshatriya, a soldier, or a Vaisya, merchant or farmer. But those who did bad work in this world in their past life attain a bad birth accordingly, being born as a dog, a pig, or as a casteless person." In Vedantic theory, there are 3 types of karma, which combined have effects. There's sanchita karma, actions from past lives whose consequences have yet to be experienced in this life. There's prarabdha karma, actions in the present life that account for one's current circumstances, and kriyamana, or agami karma, actions performed in the present life that will be experienced in future lives. All religions prescribe certain behaviors and forbid others. The Shandilya Upanishad and the Atharva Veda list 10 restraints, yamas, which a Hindu must follow to merge, yoga, with the divine. Non-violence, ahimsa, is not causing any pain to any living being at any time through the actions of one's mind, speech, or body. Not lying, satya, is speaking the truth that conduces to the well-being of creatures through the actions of one's mind, speech, or body. Not stealing, astetya, is not coveting of another's property through the actions of one's mind, speech, or body. Chastity, brahmacharya, is a refraining from sexual intercourse in all places and in all states in mind, speech, or body. Compassion, daya, is kindliness towards all creatures and all places. Sincerity, arjava, is preserving equanimity of mind, speech, or body in the performance or non-performance of the actions ordained or forbidden to be done. Patience, kshama, is bearing patiently all pleasant or unpleasant things such as praise or blame. Perseverance, dhriti, is preserving firmness of mind during the period of gain or loss of wealth or relatives. Controlled diet, mirtahara, is taking oily and sweet food in moderation and leaving 1/4 of the stomach empty. Hygiene, salsa, is of 2 kinds, external and internal. Of these, external is cleansing the body by earth and water. The internal is cleansing the mind. This, the latter, is to be obtained by means of the science of self. The concept of Brahman offers little concern to Westerners who conceive of the Supreme Godhead as being unknowable and transcendent, far above human capacity to understand. As Yahweh recounted in Isaiah 55:8, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." True enough, Brahman can seem impersonal, but Brahman is not the whole of Hindu religion, just its sublime source. There are plenty of personal manifestations of God in Indian religion, which makes God also immanent and near. The concept of Atman can likewise resonate with many Westerners who experience the certitude of the kingdom of heaven within, as we know from Luke 17:21. As to if Atman is in fact God, Brahman, within, Hindus vary in their understanding, as we have reviewed. It could well be that the Atman within is what Westerners understand as a reflection of God within. Recall that Genesis 1:26 says we have God's image within us. The concept of karma is perhaps least problematic to Westerners who, at this point, have a firm belief in the law of cause and effect. Whether this law carries over to future lives is, however, a different story. Clearly, the concept of reincarnation is the most problematic of Vedantic thought to Westerners and to many Hindus as well. The belief seems to originate from a lesson a Hindu king or prince, Pravahana Jayavali, gave to a young scholar and his Brahmin father. Little is known of this king. He is said to be a king of Panchala, an ancient kingdom in northern central India in today's Uttar Pradesh region during the 8th or 7th century BCE, so about the time the Upanishads in questions were being composed. The question naturally arises about the Upanishadic reincarnation. Was it simply a colorful story told by a king about what happens after death, designed to keep his subjects acting right? A story that in repetition in what became scripture became a tenet of faith? In relation to karma, reincarnation operates no differently than the Western view of heaven. Karma and justice follows one in both places. In the Hindu version, one returns again and again with the chance to improve, and yet that could be a terrible burden to a newborn child. In the Western version, other worldly improvement seems dependent on God's grace, a force which many Hindus also believe affects one's afterlife. Yet here, one has no more capacity to self-improve. One day, we may experience the way it really works. Through their deep study of the earlier Vedas and the new teachings brought forth in the Upanishads, the sages of India effected a powerful spiritual and cultural revolution. The chariot-riding Aryan warriors who arrived from the north gradually became a gentler people, adopting a new code of behavioral laws that stressed charity and humbleness to all, uprightness and inner calm, qualities for which Indians are even now renowned. There's great spiritual truths, skillfully and beautifully expressed in the Vedanta, often given by a loving and wise teacher to sincere students in an atmosphere of holy reverence and relevance. This seems quite a contrast to some of the instruction in Western religious traditions, where God is often quite angry at his followers, the children he has reared to obey his wise counsel, but who frequently disobeys. And yet in the Hebrew Bible, God's love exceeds his wrath, and his anger is tempered by the love he has for his unruly children and his promise to redeem and care for them and for all humanity. The differences in tone between Eastern and Western spiritual instruction seems to be because in the West, the work of establishing monotheism is the story of a single, often dysfunctional and disobedient family requiring a firm hand, while in India, religion started as polytheism and then slowly found its way to a colorful monotheism through the work of wise sages. In both traditions, there is the guiding force of love and the necessity of teaching moral behavior. In the end, both peoples are walking a path toward the same goal of bringing heaven to earth by reforming human character. As to the family dysfunction and violence we see in the Hebrew Bible, while there is not much of this in the Upanishads, the Hindu epics make up for that, and so we'll turn to that next to point out the spiritual highlights and teachings of its great champions.